Well, the C8Z is amazing. So now what? Alright, welcome back, boys and girls. Happy Veterans Day morning. Hope you guys are off as well. If not, it's almost the weekend. A couple of quick PSAs before I get into today's video. That is, if you have coilovers on your C5 or C6 or C7, make sure you don't use the rubber bushings stock, because mine got squished within about 5 months. It kind of rebounded a little bit, but when I took the wheel off to put the polyurethane bushings on it, it was squished down to the strut tower and the top of the coil, and I was making a little bit of noise. So yeah, make sure you get some poly bushings on there. Secondly, if you're running a tick clutch master cylinder, the directions that everyone online tells you, take out the clutch return spring. It's more of a helper spring than a clutch return. And when I bought my car, it had some weird off-brand master cylinder. I put it in a tick, and again, I did not put the clutch spring on the pedal back in because it says you don't need it. Just on a whim, I put it in, and it feels amazing. It feels so much better. I find I daily drive my Mini Cooper. It's got a very, very soft, light clutch. So when I got into this thing, which is much heavier, I found it to be kind of a pain in the ass. I put the spring back on with the Tick Master, and it feels amazing. It feels great. I love it. So quick little PSA. I might do a video on those two things separately at another time, but I have your attention, so I thought I'd talk about it. All right, let's talk about the C8Z. Now, I wanted to give this video a couple weeks to really think about it, let it marinate on my brain, all that stuff. I know the first day it came out, the first couple days, people just flooded the internet with Z06 stuff. A lot of it's just hearsay and speculation, but here's some thoughts I have on the Z06. And don't get me wrong, I think the Z06 is going to be an amazing car. The power you're getting from a naturally aspirated motor, 670, I think I was reading a lot of sources about 620, so I was off about 50 horsepower. The torque numbers I was seeing before the reveal were pretty spot on. Just the nature of a flat plane crank, you're going to get lower torque numbers. It's just the way it works. I mean, the damn thing sounds more like a Ferrari than Ferrari does, and I think that's kind of what Corvette was trying to do. And to me, it kind of signals a culture shift at Corvette itself. It's really wanting us to take it a lot more seriously. I always have. I've always thought Corvettes are awesome. A lot of people put their nose up to Corvettes because maybe the interior quality, or it's an American car, etc. And who knows, this could be the last internal combustion engine generation Corvette, and they want to go out with a bang, you know. I really hope the C9 at least has a hybrid situation, not fully electric. But, you know, we're still eight years away, probably. Now, here's my concern with the C8Z going forward. Production, pricing, and later trims still to come. Look at the C8 Stingray. All right, we're in its third model year, and it's still a year behind production at meeting consumers' needs. Now, you go ahead and introduce the Z06, which right out of the gate's a lot more desirable. Now, at the base form MSRP of the Z06, assuming you could scoop up a C8 at the dealer for MSRP, we're looking at 20K over. This is all on paper, of course, but it makes this car pretty damn incredible. Now, the Corvette plant, running at full steam, can only make about 35 to 40,000 units per year. Let's assume for the next couple years, 10K of those a year are going to be the Z06. Now you're squeezing the C8 production, which already has a huge demand, even smaller. And now you have another very desirable car, the Z06, which is probably going to even bring in more numbers of people wanting one. It's going to put a huge strain on production. So yeah, the Z06 is going to have a much smaller footprint as far as production and out in the real world driving around. And let's face it, if you didn't win the lottery to get your name on a list of one of the top 3 dealerships doing MSRP, a lot of even the bigger dealerships are already telling you there's going to be a market adjustment. They haven't said what, but I'm sure it's going to be substantial. So outside of the few lucky ones that have got their name on a list at MSRP, in writing, you're kind of SOL. And if you don't, this is a very conservative number. You're not going to be buying a Z06 under 120 grand. And that's for like its most base form. I wouldn't be surprised to see markups going for 150K plus. Now, I'm not saying this out of frustration. It's just simply a perfect storm of the way the climate is right now in new cars and just economics in general. It's nuts. And it's just supply and demand to the extreme. You know what I mean? I've never seen such high demand for such an expensive toy in my life, and I don't think I ever will. This is nuts. But you know, to me, it's capitalism and it's working, in my opinion. So let's think about that. The Stingray has been on showroom floors for just about 2 years, and just north of 50,000 units running around on the streets. And people are still in awe when they see one driving around. I mean, I've seen quite a few running around. I've sat in one. I've seen quite a few up close, and even me, I'm like, man, that's a really pretty car. I know that's very subjective, but I think the C8 is a gorgeous car. Now you introduce the Z06, which is gonna have so much more demand in person, just presence, you know? And it's gonna be such a lower volume than the base Stingray, and now you have pretty much a supercar because it's scarcity. I'm still in disbelief that GM was able to pull off the C8 Corvette, even the Stingray form. Nonetheless, the Z06, it's a phenomenal car for the price point, for what's on paper, what it's gonna be selling for. It's pretty incredible with the flat plane crank, overhead cam, the most powerful naturally aspirated engine ever offered in a production car, all the carbon fiber. Just the performance numbers are gonna be insane. Now, as far as reliability goes for the LT6, only time will tell. People are already speculating online, but there's no real world data, so it's hard to say either way. As far as the C8 Stingray, the biggest concern for me, or people in general that have one, is the transmission. It seems like 5% of the C8s right now are affected by some sort of transmission issue. It makes me a little nervous. I am taking delivery of a late model 2022. I hope a lot of it's rectified, either the software issues or the amount of fluid you're supposed to add. There's lots of speculation what's going on with it, but then again, it does come with a warranty, so that gives me kind of a warm fuzzy. Now, a future concern of mine is life of the C8Z06 outside of warranty. Eventually, it's going to happen. A few years down the road, or even maybe 2 years into the production, people are going to exceed the mileage on the warranty. Now, you have a car, a motor that's kind of in uncharted waters. You got a flat plane crank, very, very, very tight tolerances, well beyond the LT5. Not only a flat plane, we also have dual overhead cams, and no one's ever worked on these. A flat plane crank typically is something you see in an exotic car, outside of the Voodoo Mustang, which I'm not too familiar with, but they also have a flat plane architecture of some sort. But up until now, between the C4, all the way up to even the C8 base model, was some sort of push rod, relatively simple in its design, all pretty similar. Very similar characteristics, pretty easy to work on. You can work on very basic tools. ECUs were very common, very similar. But now we're in the supercar territory, and that makes me a little nervous. I feel a lot of people are going to need a lot of specialty tools to work on these sooner than later in their home garage. A lot of YouTube knowledge to be had. I know YouTube is an amazing tool, but it'll take time to catch up because not a lot of people are going to have these damn things, so it's going to be a lot of trial and error, expensive trial and error. And I can only imagine the replacement parts for this motor are gonna be stupid. But if you could afford it, I think you'll be all right. That's just a concern I have, 10 years from now to pick one up at a decent price and then you got 80,000 miles on it, thing shits itself and you're kind of SOL. A crate motor for this thing's gonna run you like $30,000. I have no idea. All right, pricing. The C8 in COVID era has taught us anything. It's that people apparently shit money. And if you're not patient, you're going to be spending $50,000 on top of the sticker price, which we don't even know yet. I thought the $25,000 markup on the C8 Stingray was insane, but it's going to be pretty nuts to see, even like a Z07 package, what that pulls. I'm very curious to see myself. And I feel like the C8 prices really comes down to, or one of the facts is that it has no natural predators. The C8 is kind of in a world by itself. It's an American supercar, mid-engine. The closest thing is like a Acura NSX, but those start at 140 plus. You have a Lotus, but the numbers aren't there as far as production to keep up with the C8 Corvette. The Viper's gone now. You have the Ford GT, which is $500,000. You know what I mean? So you have the Corvette kind of sitting there on an island by itself. You have Porsche, but Porsche's kind of a very niche-y thing, and they have very loyal fans, if you will, that aren't too willing to jump ship. This isn't a perfect science, this is kind of me thinking on top of my head, but yeah, the C8's kind of in a perfect situation to make a lot of money. And yeah, I don't blame them, it's an amazing car. Alright, so we still have later iterations of the C8 later trims coming. Now let's think about this for a second. There's supposed to be 5. Now, the second iteration, the Z06, isn't even on sale yet, and the production can't even keep up, like I stated. And I have no idea how they're going to do all of these, unless this is a 10+ year run. In 2024 or 2025, we will get the introduction of the E-Ray, which from leaked sources is supposedly just A Stingray probably share a wide body, but has electric dual motors up front. And then later on, we'll get the ZR1, which supposedly is supposed to be a twin turbocharged Z06 type with some more aero, I'm sure. And later on, we'll get the Zora, which supposedly is supposed to be the twin turbo flat plane with the dual motors up front. It's going to be ludicrous, retarded, it's going to be insane. But how they're going to fit all of these into one plant and get them all out when they're already in the third production year with such a high demand, I don't know. They might have to have third shifts or fourth shifts or another plant. It's crazy. It's a good problem for GM to have, for sure. It's an amazing Halo car, but I just don't see how they're going to do it. And if supply chain stuff keeps happening, it's kind of interesting. So in conclusion of this little video, it's a very exciting time to be a Corvette fan, no doubt about that. Unless maybe you're waiting on your C8, it can be a little frustrating. The C8 Corvette is definitely turning into a rich man's toy, no doubt about it. It always has been, you know, to a degree, but these markups are almost laughable. But it's just the nature of what it is. But I think if you're patient enough, eventually you can get your hands on one at a decent price if you don't feel like ordering one. As for me, I'm 100% content with my C8Z behind me and my Stingray coming probably in a very base form sometime next year, hopefully in spring. I am looking forward to seeing other YouTube content creators, what they do with their Z06s, what kind of numbers they're going to pull, what kind of mods they're going to do to them. You know, the sky's the limit. They're already doing incredible things with the Stingray. I can only imagine what they're going to do with the flat plane. I do think though, with the Z06 coming out, that we will have an unlocked ECU for the LT5 in the near future. That'll open up a lot of avenues, but again, you'll never get that awesome sound in the Z06 out of the pushrod V8. It just is what it is. And the reliability as well. I'm very curious to see how the Z06 holds up in a real world type situation. So we'll see. Well, boys and girls, that's all I have for today. I hope you guys found this interesting, and I should have a Corvette news for you guys coming out this week. Me and the wife are actually driving up to Gaithersburg, Maryland today to the dealer we're buying our C8. They should have most of the colors there. We're trying to see all of them in person before we pick our color. So that's the goal for today when we drive up there. So it should be a fun little adventure. All right, guys, I'll catch you guys later this week. Mark out.